What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 4 different wide receiver press releases that all wide receivers need to know. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like to train with us this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. We are coming out to 15 different cities across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. Next up, we're coming out to San Francisco, Miami, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Portland, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, Buffalo, Atlanta, Houston, Philly, Detroit, Boise, and Los Angeles. So if you guys want some more information on that, how you could sign up when we're in a city near you, again, fellas, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out there. Let's get started with this video. So we're going to be going over 4 releases that we've never really gone over before on this channel. So this first release here is going to be called like a Hezi split release. So we've gone over a split release. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, but maybe not this type of variation. So this type of split release is going to be from a stance switch position, which is essentially when the quarterback is to the right over here, and instead of having the traditional right foot up, you would have your left foot up. Now, why do offenses do this? You might ask, you might wonder. They do this because to throw off the DB's timing. It's usually for like routes that are based off of timing, like off of steps in a more traditional setting, but wide receivers will do it against man coverage to kind of throw off that DB's tempo, throw off his eyes a little bit, coming out in this stance switch to do a release like this. But we're also going to show how you guys can do this release from a more traditional stance as well. So we're going to play at full speed, then we'll break it down. So he comes out as a little Hezi step into a split release, and then is able to come off the ball and win on this like deeper corner sail route fashion. So I'm going to play at full speed one more time. So why does he decide to go with this release? All these releases that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the technique, and then we're going to talk about when to use it and why go with this. So when he comes off the line here, you see how Tank Dell's off the ball. We got a DB who's maybe about 2 yards away. So that's maybe about a 3-yard space, right? So if Tank Dell were to just come off the ball and just do this normal split release, right? He's a very twitchy guy, so that split release is something that he probably does a lot. If we were just do the split and the DB jump to the inside, our break point's still at about 12 yards, and we have still 3 yards of space from this DB. So I would try to take off to the inside, and the DB could cut off the angle because we didn't close space. Anytime that this DB is giving us some type of cushion, some types of space, we want to close this space. Now, traditionally, what guys will do is, they'll run at the DB, they'll close the space, they'll give him a hard fake outside, and then take the outside release. Now, this DB, because he's in head-up coverage, right, he's not showing a specific leverage. When it comes down to picking releases, it's all based on the DB's leverage and his distance, right? So we talked about the distance. He's about 3 yards away, but also his leverage comes into play. Is he outside leverage or is he inside leverage? If Tank Dell had to run this corner route and this DB was lined up inside leverage 3 yards away, he would attack him, give him a move inside, and take the outside release. If he was outside shade, he'd attack him, give him a move, and take the inside release. But now he's head up. So when we attack him, we are trying to gain info on him. We are trying to read him. And that's why this split release is so great. So you would step with your back foot first. So you would pretty much just kind of walk at him, and then you are splitting your feet. Both feet need to hit the ground at the exact same time, and your feet want to be just slightly outside of your shoulders. If I'm coaching up a receiver, I probably wouldn't have him have his feet this wide, just because I feel like if they were a little bit closer together, he'd be in a more explosive spot. But nonetheless, release worked great. Obviously very twitchy, but both feet, again, you step with your back foot, you go at the DB, you step with the right foot, both feet go outward, and they hit the ground at the exact same time. Now, I love this release because when you have a head-up press coverage DB, and you do this split release. Remember, I said you want both feet to be slightly outside your shoulders, hit the ground at the same time. They call that coming to balance. When you come to balance, guess what happens? If this DB jumps to the inside, you don't have to just take the inside release. You could just plant off of your inside foot and take the outside release, because this split release is a great release for a reaction. You split, you could react off the DB. Luckily, this DB jumps to the outside. We just take the inside release because I'm in a balanced position to do so. So anytime that you have a head up coverage DB, maybe about 2 to 3 yards off, you could absolutely do this release. Step at him with your back foot, then both feet step wide. So it's right, split. Right, split. Now, let's say your coach doesn't want you to do the stance switch. Totally fine. You would step with your right foot up. So your right foot's up in your stance. Your left foot is back. You step with your left foot vertical, closing space with the DB. And then you would do the same exact split of the feet and get a read on this DB and react. Make sure, fellas, both feet hit the ground. We're not standing straight up with my chest, because if your chest is exposed, that DB is going to get hands and jam. We want to pretend like we were underneath a small doorway, stay in an explosive spot, good base, both feet hit at the same time. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job here by Tank Dell, working this like hezzy, a closed distance split release versus a DB who's in head up press 2 yards away. So now, next release we're going to be talking over here from Keenan Allen is a hezzy skip release, or like a slide and go, if you will. And it's going to be off of something called a kick step. So let's play this full speed. So this is honestly probably one of my favorite releases to use. I would consider this more of a hezzy skip release, so a hezzy skip. And this is a release that you would use if you have to run. Honestly, you could do it on an inside breaking route, but I love it when we have a DB who's lined up inside shade press, maybe about 1.5 yards away, I would say, or he could be right up on the line. So how this release starts is you take a step with your back foot behind your front foot called a kick step. Now listen, guys, a lot of coaches, a lot of old school coaches will say that that is a false step. It is a false step if this DB is 8 yards away in zone coverage and you got to go run like a post route or an out route or what have you. But if it's press coverage, this is a part of the release. When you kick step, and if you don't believe what I'm saying on this, that's fine, it's valid. Just make sure that you try it out, because when you kick step like this, this loads up your hips. You put yourself in an explosive position to explode off the ball. That one little step creates a lot of energy for you off the line of scrimmage. And we're going to see why, because again, there's some distance between Keenan Allen and this DB. So what do you think he has to do with this hezzy release? He's got to close some distance. He's got to attack vertically. And this kick step allows us to do it. So it loads up our hips and it creates some energy, because you see how he does this like little like pivot off of his right foot. So he kicks first, then he pivots, and he is going to hop with the right foot. So you kick behind. This is the skip portion of it. So you kick with the left, pivot right, hop right, land on the right foot, then take off. And that like double step that you take with your right foot, the pivot, then the step. You kick, pivot, step. That hesitation right there can throw off that DB's timing, guys. So when you kick 1, 2 with the right foot, gets him to hesitate for a second, gets him to sit to the inside. Maybe you're changing up the tempo of your route. Then we could take that free outside release and get up into my break. Because again, guys, you got to have some kind of element, because when we're receivers, like, there's a million different releases you can use, right? And some people like some certain ones, some people like other ones, whatever it is. But I recommend to have maybe about 5 or 6 releases that you like. And maybe 2 of them are similar to this, where you change up the tempo. Because if constantly off the ball, everything that you're doing is just fast, quick step, one step, diamond release, just going as quick as you can. That DB eventually is going to get that timing down. So you want to be able to have something that changes up the timing. Keenan Allen probably has a speed release off of this kick step, where he kick steps and then goes. And honestly, like, I guarantee he has it, because we've all seen it before, where he kick steps and bursts upfield. So now what does he do? He makes it look the same, kick steps, little hezzy step with the right foot, double step, gets this DB to settle for a second, think about it, then go. Because at this level, especially when you're a good athlete wide receiver, all it takes is a step, guys, especially when you have a talented quarterback. So this is a great example of this hezzy skip release and then bursting up into this route. So now, building off of that, this is another example of Tank Dell working the release that we just did from a stanced switched position. So if you guys switch your stance in your offense, or maybe you're at a camp, you're doing one-on-ones, and you want to kind of throw off the DB a little bit, this is a variation, I would say a more advanced variation of that same hezzy skip that we talked about, where you don't need to use a kick step also, by the way. But this also builds off of the split release that we just showed from Tank Dell as well. So let's play at full speed. So he comes off the ball, he steps it right, then go. And again, fellas, it's just another way to throw off that DB's timing. Because remember, what did Tank Dell do before? He did a crossover, and then he did a quick split release. So again, that's kind of a faster, quicker tempo release. Now what does he do? He does this little hezzy skip with his inside foot to throw off that DB's timing, just to get him by a step. And maybe he's done this release on a fade before. DB's seen it before he runs, and then we put the brakes on and run a curl, right? It's all about deception. It's all about making this stuff off the line look similar. So let's talk about the mechanics here, right? So he comes off the ball. He steps with the right foot across his frame. Then he takes another step with the right foot before the left foot even hits the ground. That's that hesitation skip that we talk about. So he goes right foot again, changes up the tempo, and then accelerates. He goes from 0 to 100 off the ball to get this DB guessing. And remember, we want to use it in the exact same situation as the other one. Inside shade guy, you have to run an outside breaking route. I recommend like a stop route, an out route, a fade route. You could do this on an inside breaking route, but it's better on an outside breaking route, I would say. So remember, stance switch, advanced variation, step across your frame with the right foot, hesitate on the right foot again, then take off. So we go across, 1, 2, take off. That's a great advanced release that you guys can use from a stance switched position. All right, so next release we're going to be breaking down is this Davante Adams hesitation hop, almost crossover release that everybody loves to watch, everybody loves to see. He's one of the best in the world at it, and I think we're going to break down the technique of this really well so you guys can actually do this on your own, because a lot of receivers try to do this and it just doesn't look right, and we're going to break down just the simple technique of it. So it starts with a pivot of the front foot. Now, this release you could use, I like it when you have like a guy who's inside shade like this, maybe about a yard or two off. And remember, when we have a yard or two, we have to close the space with him, and we want to threaten his leverage to get him to move so we could work to the outside, and he's running a deep out on this. So we're going to play at full speed. So it starts with a pivot of the front foot and then a push of the back leg. So pivot of the front foot, push of the back leg. So why does he pivot? He pivots to kind of get some weight on this leg, and then he pushes off of the back foot. So remember, it's a pivot step, and you see how he dips down to this back leg. He is pushing. So now that his next step can be like a reach step, if you will, like out of the grass. Remember, it's a pivot. He pushes off the back foot in the air, then he hits a right foot jab to the inside, and then takes off. So it's a 3-step movement. It's a pivot off the front foot, like we said. Pivot, push, jab. Now, could he do like a pivot, push, and then hit a right-left crossover if this DB was like head up and he had to run a slant? Absolutely, and we've seen him do it before, right? Could he, off the ball, push off the back leg, reach with the right, left, right, do a crossover, and then go? Absolutely. But I want you guys to pay attention to this one. It's a 3-step movement when this DB is inside shade and we have to run this outside breaking route. It's a pivot, push, jab. Let's go back to it again. Remember, the front foot, it pivots to get us some dip down, get us some energy, get us some balance. Pivot, push, jab to attack that DB inside and get separation on that outside breaking route. So that's a great release that all wide receivers can take home with them. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, we are coming out to 15 more states this offseason for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camp. So again, check out that very first link in the description below, coming all the way from San Francisco, California to Detroit to Atlanta, all over the place. So again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.